already exists as a solution. Moving on to slide number 18. So this is, although it mentions that this is for platform and operating system admins, all of these slides can be applicable to any DB2 beginner or any database administrator, not specific to DB2 alone. The first thing that is important is planning the environment, capacity planning. Always make sure you install DB2 on a different volume group or a different disk other than that of the system disk. If you know on Windows, if you just have the C drive with your system data, it's really a risky affair, because if your system C crashes, your data is gone and there is no other way you can get it unless you have a sound backup system in place. So always we recommend you to have a separate disk or a separate volume group for the data or the database code. Plan separate file systems, one for the DB2 code. Each instance has to have its own file system. Different file systems for data, possibly on different disks. Active logs, you need to have a separate file system. Archival logs have a separate file system. Diag logs, put it on a smaller file system. Backups, depending on what backup solution you are adapting to. And one file system for your scripts and the DB work that you do. So this is not documented anywhere. There is no hard and fast rule that you have to follow this, but this is the best practice that we can give based on our experience. Size for these file systems has to be decided based on how much you can get and what is the requirement that is coming into you. Moving on to slide number 19. Some of the file systems that you see here is the code. Code is usually sitting on /opt/IBM DB2 v9.7 on AIX and similar on Linux. Home directory of instances, which looks like /home/DB2 NST1 by default. You may have your own home directories. Data, of course, you can have it, like I said, you can have it on a SAN network, or you can also have it on DAS-DE or disk systems. Backup path, make sure you have at least one copy of your database backup on your local file system. Slide number 20. There are some important users and groups for DB2 which are not to be messed up with. We have had cases where it happens that a DB2 user is thought to be a normal user, and sometimes there are some changes that happen at user level. For example, maybe the user is dropped and recreated, and it looks like the user is back, but the instance is actually gone, because when we have DB2 instance created, the user, every DB2 user is actually a OS user, unlike your other RDBMS, where you have a variation where it could be a OS user or it could be a DB level user. So every user in DB2 is an OS user. So some of the important users are instance user, fenced user, DAS user. These three are the mandatory users that you require to specify when you install a DB2 system. Primary groups, instance primary group, you have your fenced group and the DAS group. These are three groups that you are required to specify while you are installing. Processes, if you want to have a look at what are the DB2 processes running in your system, PSEF, grep DB2. If you want to have a look at what are the active DB2 instances, just mention PSEF, grep DB2 SYSE. This is on Unix systems. Now, the idea here why these things are put here is the OS admin many a time is required to do some of the DB2 tasks while maintaining it. So, a knowledge of these could really help in knowing what is important and what is not important. Again, why we have mentioned these is when an OS admin manages a system, he is expected to clean up the system or probably take a look at what are the processes, probably take a look at what are the users. So in that case, if there is no idea with where the OS admin does not know what are the important things, it can create to a lot of havoc on the system. So it's good to have an understanding of this. Moving on to slide number 21. Many a times OS people reboot the system, or we ask for a reboot of the system. So if there are maintenance activities where we have data center maintenance or any other maintenance that is going on, the first expectation is to make sure the DB2 is running after a reboot without any manual intervention. So you can adapt to either init tab approach, where you set up your own script in etc init tab and give an rc.db2 file, or you can use the db2 inbuilt utility, which is the db2 iauto, and you can start up, make sure that db2 starts up automatically. You can also specify which instance has to start up automatically and which should not. You have the flexibility to do that. So if you see here, you can validate whether your instance is up and running, whether it is configured for iauto using the command specified here. On Windows, it is pretty simple, like any other application. Just go to start, run, you have your services.msc file. Just pick the service that you want it to come up automatically. Just say right click, properties, and there is an option to enable automatic startup. Moving on to slide number 22. There are requirements to schedule DB2 scripts and jobs. So you can use a cron tab on a Unix system. I guess most of you already know about it. So you can use either the cron tab of the root, or you can use the cron tab at DB2 level, which could be the instance user or any other DB2 user. When you're using the cron tab of root, make sure your DB2 profile is sourced to the script. Otherwise, you may find that your job is not running, although everything looks right with the script. Many a times, it so happens that there may have been a change in the IP address or change in the host name of the system, and after that you find that your DB2 is not running anymore. This is a case where a lot of operating system admins have a problem with. So just for your information, there is a file called db2nodes.cfg, which is a configuration file which has an entry of all the partitions that the DB2 system is connected to. If it is a single partition system, it will have a single entry with a 0 node entry, and it will have the host name entered in that. So if you have had a change in the host name of your system, make sure you go there and validate whether the new host name is reflecting over there. If it is not reflecting, take a backup of this file and change the host name, save it and restart DB2, and it would work fine. Next is maintenance of log files. We have heard a lot of cases where accidentally a developer or maybe an operating system administrator, without knowing, unintentionally deletes some of the DB2 log files. These could be active log files or archival log files. We had practical cases coming to us where this has happened and the active logs have disappeared because of the simple reason that these logs are stored as .log, and anything .log which is old is probably assumed that it is not needed anymore and it is wiped off. So in this case, it becomes really a very tricky situation unless you have the latest backup. If you have a recovery time objective where you need data, which is up to date, then you really have no option but to, convince the customer to accept some amount of lag. So just to avoid this, make sure you never delete or anybody in that that area, or those who don't know database administration. Make sure that there are no log files that are getting deleted from DB2 end, especially the transaction log files and the archival log files. You can find something like S000 star.log as of that pattern. So if you find something of this pattern, please don't ever look at deleting them. But there are cases where the DBA would want to delete them in case of a maintenance activity. So that's very much possible. So unless asked by the DBA, it's best to leave them as is, even though they are occupying space on your system. Coming on to slide number 23. So I was talking about ITM. ITM is the inbuilt Tivoli monitoring solution for IBM system. So what you see here is it has a lot of capabilities which reduces the work of a DBA. Whatever is mentioned here, say if you want to monitor your table spaces, earlier we had to either configure your health center, or we may have to write scripts, Unix shell scripts or Perl scripts to make sure that these are monitored and the notification is sent to you. But now with ITM coming in, you can set up an agent in your client system where it can automatically monitor your table spaces and send a report to you or send the same notification to you. Also, a lot of data that we used to, a lot of time that we used to spend in collecting data, such as what is the buffer pool hit ratio, or what is the sort overflow, what are the log timeouts that have happened. All these things can be captured by ITM, but again ITM is something that you have to buy. It's a solution that is offered by IBM. So it covers a lot of such aspects, very useful things that we have practically used in our systems. So it can just configure the agent and configure your thresholds, and it would automatically monitor everything and send it across to you in an email. Moving on to slide number 24. TSM is another IBM solution, which it's called the Tivoli Storage Manager. So DB2 and TSM go hand in hand. So you can also have Oracle or any other database configured with TSM. So TSM is the backup solution that we use. Configuring DB2 with the TSM is a very simple procedure, but very useful because you can take backups directly to TSM from DB2. And it's one of the most reliable solutions that we have seen in the past, because if you have a file system, if you have a backup that is taken on the same file system, and if that system crashes, then there is no point in taking a backup. Or if you have a backup on another system and your primary system crashes, there could be a time that takes for you to get the backup image from the other system, or if there is a worst case scenario where the other system has also crashed, then that's even more weird to think of. So it's always good to have backups taken to a third-party backup agent. So here I've just jotted down some simple steps to configure DB2 with TSM and take backups. Just install the TSM API client. You have both the 32-bit and 64-bit clients, depending on what instance you're using. Just install it. You have two files called as dsm.sys and dsm.opt. Just configure these files with some information that you require from the TSM administrator. These are simple parameters such as the server name of TSM, the node name, and the port number, and configure them. Make sure this is registered at the TSM end. Again, you can just interlock with the TSM administrator who can give you inputs on that. You have to configure the DB2 user profile with 3 entries of the path of where these libraries reside. Update the node password as root from DB2 end. And you will have to test the connectivity from DB2 to TSM. So the utility that we use here is the DB2 ADUTL tool. So this is used to check what are the backups available for the database, what are the log files available. It can also be used to retrieve backup images from TSM to the local system. It can also be used to verify a lot of parameters. So simple command here which can be used to directly push a backup to TSM is DB2 backup DB name, use TSM. You can also use TSM as one of the media to store your archival logs instead of maintaining them on your local file system. So all that you have to do is configure your logarch met1 parameter to TSM. But make sure before you configure this, your TSM connectivity with DB2 is intact. Else you will see a lot of errors in the DB2 dag.log where it reports that there is no connectivity established between DB2 and TSM, and you could have several errors that are logging in the DB2 dag.log. Moving on to slide number 25. This is for middleware administrators. These could be WebSphere administrators, WebLogic administrators, Java, ABAP, maybe Apache, HTTP, all these category of administrators, we call them as middleware administrators. So many times we see that they have a need to know what is a DB2 version and fixed-pack level that is installed, and just to know this information they may wait for a DBA to come, and to avoid that lag, we can just pass on these information to them. So all that they have to do is just switch user to the DB2 instance and enter the DB2 level command. Similarly, if you want to know what are the products that are installed on the system, DB2 products installed, it's only on Unix that you can use this from version 9 onwards. It's DB2 LS. Moving on to slide number 26. For those who are administrators, who are application server administrators, we have seen that you have requirements where you need to know what is a driver type, whether it is a JDBC2 connectivity or JDBC4 type 4 connectivity. You may need to know what is the database name, what is the host name, what is the port number on which the instance is listening on to. So these are information which you can collect yourself. So if you have an idea about this, it gets you work faster. Error log files very important for everybody on this call. So we have instance name.nfy file, which is a basic admin file which logs information about the errors. We have a db2 diag.log, which is a diagnostic log. You can control how much of information you want to log into this file. You could opt to you could opt for an thing where you just need to you want it to log only critical messages, or you want even warnings, you want severe messages, or you want even information level messages. It can be controlled. And yeah, the simplest thing is we have seen a lot of errors that are coming in. Say a VAS admin or maybe a WebLogic administrator is running an application and he finds an SQL error that is coming to him, which is a DB2 SQL error. So the best thing that you can do is just DB2 question mark the SQL error will give you an output of the documentation of the error. It will tell you what is the problem, how to solve it, and what could be your problem and some of the steps to solve the problem. About 70-75% of the times this helps. Of course, if not for this, you can always go to the information center and check for further errors or further information before you actually start Googling for the error. So checking the status of a database server, you can just say psef grep db2 sysc. db2 sysc is the process which helps you know whether the instance is running or not. And on Windows, you have the Windows services, which tells you whether the service is up or not. That's about it.